Guru, Hicks, Hutchings, Ide, Jones, Kolb, Landon, Larson, McEwen, Nethercott, Olson, Pappas, Pearson, Rothfuss, Salazar, Schuler, Scott, Smith, Steinmetz, President Beitman.
Here.
President Beitman, 31 here.
Thank you very much. Well done. Today's chaplain of the day is a friend of mine, Pastor Tommy Miller from Faith Baptist Church here in Cheyenne. Pastor Miller, will you lead us in the prayer today?
Certainly. Let us pray. Our Father in heaven, we thank you today that you've given us another day to live, to breathe, to enjoy the creation that you've made. Father, another day to work, another day to labor. Father, another day to strive to do what's right and good. And Father, we invoke your blessing today. We call upon you as the Ancient of Days, the one who is full of wisdom and strength, of counsel and of understanding. The one of whom your word says that if any man lacks wisdom, let him ask of God, who gives to all men liberally. He does not withhold it. And Father, we ask today that you would just grant your wisdom to this body. Father, give them the strength to continue in the work, to accomplish and to finish well the things they've begun this session. Father, I pray you'll give them a peace of mind to work together. And Father, that things will be accomplished as they should be. God, I thank you for the time and the sacrifice that each and every one of them make. But God, we thank you most for the sacrifice of your Son, Jesus Christ, who loved us and gave himself for us on the cross. It's in his name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor. Senator McEwen, will you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Reading, correction, and approval of journal. Will the reading clerk please read the journal committee report?
Mr. President, your Journal Committee reports that the Journal of March 4, 2025 has been read and recommends that it be approved. Senator Crum, Chairman.
Are there any objections? Hearing none, the report has been adopted. Today in Wyoming history, in 1895, the first refinery in Wyoming began operations in Casper. And the quote for the day, push yourself to do what others are not willing to do. Eve Kim. Dad joke of the day, why did the cookie go to the doctor? Because he felt crummy. It's appropriate. Announcements, concurrence on amendments, joint conference committee reports, and veto overrides today. And again, additional funds are due for snacks and beverages available in the Senate break room. Please submit your payment to Heather or Kelly in the leadership office. All right, this morning we have the privilege of welcoming some special guests from the Wyoming Girls and Boys State Program. These exceptional students were elected to their respective roles last summer and have dedicated time to learn about Wyoming's government right here in these chambers. To provide us with more insight into the program, we are joined by Wyoming Girls State Governor Aspen Sewell from Saratoga and Wyoming Boys State Governor Tony Salgado from Cody. Senators, please join me in extending a warm welcome to our distinguished guests.
Thank you. Thank you all very much. To start, I'd like to introduce my fellow delegates. Madison Gibson is our Secretary of State. Catherine Albrandt is our Treasurer. Chloe Fitzgerald is our Auditor. Liesl Botts is our Superintendent of Public Instruction. And Ellen Fogg is one of our Girls Nation delegates. Deanna Davis is our other Girls Nation delegate. However, she had another commitment and wasn't able to make it today. When I look back on the week I spent at Girls State in early June, I have a lot of thoughts. First of all, I feel that there's no way to adequately sum up the experience in 5 minutes, but I'll do my best. Going into the week, I had very little idea of what I had signed up for, and I had a rocky start when the bus that was supposed to pick me up completely forgot me. But hey, would it really be an adventure without a little bit of adversity? When I first got there, I was scared that I wouldn't make friends and wouldn't enjoy the week in general. But that couldn't be further from the truth. I had worried in vain, because Girls State ended up not only being my favorite part of the summer, but something that I would call a life-changing experience. I made new friends and deepened existing friendships. I learned about the court system, the Senate, and the House. I developed an understanding of the election system and its importance. Last but not least, Girls State opened my eyes to a whole new world of opportunity for me in the future. For those of you that are unfamiliar with how it works, approximately 90 girls from across the state, along with a plethora of volunteers, counselors, gathered at the Laramie County Community College for a week of learning, growing, and networking. Once there, the delegates were split into 6 cities, 2 political parties, and the House, Senate, or courts. I spent my time in the court system, so Monday morning started with a trip to the court building here in Cheyenne. Once there, we met our attorney advisors who graciously volunteered their time and expertise all week long. Throughout the week, I got to play the role of witness, defense counsel, and plaintiff counsel, culminating with being a prosecuting attorney in the Wyoming Supreme Court room here in this building. Throughout the week, I got to hear about what was happening in the Senate and the House from my city mates who spent their time there. Additionally, at the end of the week, the court system delegates got to watch a session in the House, in the Senate, and a joint one between the two. This was an extremely informative experience for me because prior to this, I had little knowledge of how either house operated. I even left the week wishing I could have played a role in both houses as well as the courts. Something I knew little about before attending Girls State was the election process. Along with actively participating in it and learning how it works, I gained an appreciation for it and a better understanding of its importance. I know that one of the best ways I can be an active citizen with a voice is through voting, and more importantly, informed voting. After Girls State, I have been much more motivated to find true news, learn what is happening locally, nationally, and globally. Now, while learning about our system of government and the citizens who make it possible from the city level to the national level is intriguing, it has also impacted the actions that I take every day. I learned that being involved doesn't only matter at the town or national level, but everywhere in between, whether that be by serving on the legislature, working in the courts, voting in elections, running for a position on the local town council, going to school board meetings, or encouraging others to take part in these activities. We all have a role. I may not be old enough to vote in elections, but I am old enough to serve as student body president for Saratoga High School. I am old enough to think about the classes I take and how they help me shape the future that I want. For that reason, last semester, I took College U.S. History, College American and Wyoming Government, and College Forensic Psychology. All of these classes expanded on things I had already been exposed to at Girls State and further reinforced that I can see myself one day sitting where you are. But I don't need that to be a difference maker. Facilitating change starts in stewarding the roles that I've already been blessed with. It means being the best school president I can be. It means stepping up and showing integrity in the little things in life. It means focusing on the bigger picture, not just me. It means investing in the people around me and finding joy in their success. Being a citizen means being informed and involved. It means putting yourself out there and having fact-based as well as respectful discussion with others whose beliefs might differ from your own. I also learned the value of admitting when you are wrong. It's not an admission of weakness as our culture would like to suggest, but instead it proves that you are strong enough to grow as a person. And these are all lessons that I walked away from Girls State with. I don't know how many people it took to make it possible for me to attend, but I wish I did so I could sincerely thank each and every one of them. These are all lessons that many people go their whole life without grasping. But as a 17-year-old, I already feel that I've been overwhelmingly blessed by wonderful leaders and mentors who have poured into me and shown me what it means to live these values out. I left Girls State with a burning desire to be the best leader I could, and I know I'm not alone in that. When writing this, I reached out to the delegates in my city, and here's what they had to say. Sophie said, Girls State helped me step out of my comfort zone, find my voice, and grow as a person. I also discovered my love for government and gained a deeper respect for our country. I'm so grateful for the friendships I made and the amazing people I met along the way. Lindsay said, Girls State provided me with the room to grow. The experience truly taught me how to be heard and respected, hold my independence, and express myself freely. And Kinley said, I had so much fun and would honestly recommend it to anyone who wants to even just understand our government a little bit more. It helped me to understand how it works and what goes on within it. I think Girls State should absolutely be held every year to provide girls with the opportunities we had. These sentiments were shared by numerous others, including myself. Since Girls State, I have kept in contact with many of the amazing people I met, and it's always fun to catch up at a state activity for a sport or club. Girls State was to me a prime example of how I could be a better citizen, leader, and student on many fronts. Truly, I'm so grateful for the experience, and I'm very thankful to everyone who made it possible for me to attend. and I would recommend it time and time again to anyone who gets the chance to go. Thank you all very much.
Okay, good morning, Senate President Beitman and distinguished members of the legislature. Thank you for the opportunity today to speak before you. It is an honor to stand here and share an overview of the incredible experience that was Boys State last summer. This event was an exceptional opportunity for young leaders to come together and learn about government and the importance of civic education. Throughout the week, the delegates, ranging from high school juniors all across the state, have worked hard to understand the intricacies of our democratic system. They've run for office, campaigned, debated important issues, and learned about the responsibilities of public service through mock trials, mock Senate hearings, and city councils. This hands-on experience was invaluable as we all gained a deeper understanding of what it meant to be an active participant in our government. And I'd like to take a moment to introduce the delegates who held key leadership roles that week and who have demonstrated exceptional leadership and dedication. So with me today, we have the Secretary of State, Mr. Steele Davis from Grable, the State Treasurer, Mr. Brix Hooten from Lineman, and the State Auditor, Mr. Miles Bailey from Cody. I would like to say that these young men displayed great initiative, commitment, and understanding of the political process during that week, and I believe that they are certainly ones to watch in the future. And as we reflect on that week, I want to acknowledge the importance of programs like Boys State, which prepare our future leaders by offering them the tools and knowledge that they need to succeed. I believe that many of these young men will go on and have a profound impact on the state and our country in roles ranging from local leaders to lawmakers, business people, and even more. Before I close, I'd like to ask if there are any current representatives here who have attended Boys State or Girls State. And if you could, please stand up. If we could please give them a round of applause. It's always inspiring to see how these programs shape the future of the people who participate. So in closing, I want to express my gratitude for all of you and for your ongoing support of initiatives like Boys State and Girls State. Your commitment to fostering the next generation of leaders is truly appreciated. So thank you for your time and for everything you do to ensure that programs like this continue to thrive.
Well, it's our job here in the Senate right now to leave this institution and this state a better place than what we found it for you guys. So we're going to do our best to do that, and then you have to make the same commitment to the generation below you, and that's how we make this country better and better and better. So you have our commitment that we will do that for you, and we will keep these chairs warm for you because I'm sure you all will be sitting in them soon. So thank you. One more round of applause. Senator Cooper,
A brief privilege of the floor, please.
floor is yours, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen, price of oil this morning is 65.40, something like that. That's West Texas Intermediate. That puts every barrel of oil in Wyoming at sub 60, and all of our heavy crude at sub 50. Every $5 movement in the price of a barrel of oil costs the state of Wyoming $30 million in severance taxes. So just over the last week, we've dropped $5. We've lost $30 million. Over the last year, we're down $25, $150 million in revenues, just on severance tax. So this morning, I'm in contact with the pumpers and different people in the field. The marginal wells are being shut in. We can't even produce them for what we're getting for a barrel of oil. The state of Wyoming we got our back to the walls, folks, whether you realize it or not. As we go through this stuff today, we need to consider every dollar that's being spent. Every dollar that's being spent. Because the next year is gonna get pretty ugly for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Cooper. Senator Landon,
Mr. President, may I have privilege of the floor,
the
please?
floor is yours.
First of all, thank you to the good senator from the Bighorn Basin. One of the real privileges is we get to serve in here with a lot of experts, and the senator is certainly one. If you want to know what's going on, boots on the ground in the oil and gas industry, the senator is a good guy to talk with about that. Mr. President, I thought before we dove off into the deep water today, maybe a little bit more lighthearted information that I might share with you. We took back up on the little committee that I've alluded to before, the Wayfinding and Historical Exhibit Committee this morning, did some work. I wanted to publicly acknowledge our staff members, particularly two people who have helped to really ramrod that effort through, and without whom we wouldn't be where we are with the crowning of this achievement in the Capitol, and that is Wendy Mattson and Rihanna Davidson. When you see those two, I hope that you'll pat them on the back and thank them for all the work they do to keep that committee on track and to help us do what we're doing on your behalf. I've been asked, what's ahead? In other words, I thought you were kind of done. Well, we're not quite. I wanted to let you know that you've got some digital, innovative sorts of displays that are coming. We saw a little preview of that today, and I think they're extraordinary, really outstanding. The vault downstairs on the garden level, the big vault, is going to become a room that we call Portraits of History. And you'll be able to go in there, it will be adorned appropriately, and you'll get to hear stories on mining and agriculture and the history of Wyoming. We had a little update too on the acoustic work that we're doing in the Capitol, which I think it's fun to look back 125 years and know that they had that same visit. They built the building and they couldn't hear each other, and so they were bringing straw bales in and trying to get the sound absorbed. Well, we're doing the same thing again after the renovation. So we'll be working on that, Mr. President, in these coming months. When we gather together again the next time, 10 or 11 months down the road or whenever that is, there'll be some more changes and maybe a cherry on the sundae. So thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Be looking forward to those straw bales around the Capitol. And do thank Wendy and Rihanna. They have been working their tails off, as well as the good Senator Landon over there. So you're not off the hook either for getting congratulated and slapped on the back, sir. You done a fine job, and you'll continue to do a fine job because I put you back on the list to do it again. So you're welcome. All right. Signing of enrolled acts. Everybody needs a friend like Senator Case. He is easy to please, I tell you what. He is easy to please. He loves his enrolled acts. Senate Enrolled Act number 93.
Senate Enrolled Act number 93 being original Senate File 95. Special Purpose Depository Institutions Amendments, an act relating to banks, banking, and finance.
I'm about to sign Senate Enrolled Act number 93, being original Senate File 95. I've so signed. All right, messages from the House.
Mr. President, the following messages are dated March 4, 2025. Message number 11, override governor's veto passed from the House of Representatives. The House has voted to override the governor's veto on Senate Enrolled Act number 59, being original Senate File 132. Ayes 47, noes 13, excused 2. Message number 489, Joint Conference Committee report adopted. Mr. President, the House adopted Joint Conference Committee number 2 report on Senate File 32, unpaved roads, speed limits amendments. Ayes 46, noes 13, excused 3. Message number 490, Mr. President, the House adopted Joint Conference Committee number 1 report on House Bill 154, false voting amendments. Signed, Representatives Costin, Locke, and Yin, Senators Pearson, Hicks, and Steinmetz. Message number 491, Joint Conference Committee report adopted. Mr. President, the House adopted the Joint Conference Committee number 1 report on House Bill 246, Wyoming Wednesday. Ayes 56, noes 4, excused 2. Message number 488. Mr. President, the House adopted Joint Conference Committee number 1 report on Senate File 196, Second Amendment Protection Act amendments. Ayes 54, noes 4, excused 4. Message number 497. Mr. President, the Senate File 191, State Funds Proxy Voting and Pecuniary Investments, passed on third reading in an amended form. Ayes 60, excused 2. Message number 498, Mr. President, Senate File 169, Strategic Investments and Projects Account repeal, passed on third reading in an amended form. Ayes 46, noes 14, excused 2. Message number 495, Mr. President, Senate File 153, Residential Real Property Taxable Value, passed the House on third reading in an amended form. Ayes 51, noes 9, excused 2. Mr. President, Senate File number 44, Fairness in Sports Intercollegiate Athletics, passed on third reading in an amended form. Ayes 52, noes 8, excused 2. The House respectfully asks the Senate to concur by adopting amendments on the concurrence requests. Message number 493, Mr. President, Senate File 70, Investment Modernization State Non-Permanent Funds, passed the House on third reading. Ayes 58, noes 2, excused 2. Message number 494, Mr. President, Senate File number 95, Special Purpose Depository Institution Amendments, passed on third reading. Ayes 60, excused 2. Sincerely, Katie Talbot, House Chief Clerk.
Thank you, Randy. Messages from the governor.
Mr. President, the following messages are dated March 4, 2025. Honorable Chip Nyman, Speaker of the Wyoming House, regarding line item veto of House Enrolled Act number 56, House Bill 117, Omnibus Water Bill Construction. To the Honorable Chip Nyman, House Speaker, regarding veto of House Enrolled Act number 55, House Bill 79, Bond Elections Voter Threshold Requirement. To the Honorable Bo Beitman, Wyoming Senate President, regarding veto of Senate Enrolled Act number 59, Senate File 127, Administrative Rules Legislative Review. To the Honorable Bo Beitman, Senate President, regarding veto of Senate Enrolled Act number 61, Senate File 103, Terminating and Defunding Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. Sincerely, Mark Gordon, Governor.
Thank you, Randy. Concurrences. Concurrence request on Senate File 44, message number 492.
Message number 492, concurrence requested referencing Senate File 44, Fairness in Sports Intercollegiate Athletics.
Senator Schuler.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would move concurrence on message number 492 to Senate File 44, Fairness in Sports Intercollegiate Athletics, and encourage an aye vote. What they did over on the House side, I think it made the bill a little better. I was a little concerned about a couple sections, but in visiting with some of the folks that added the amendments and also some of the college and university people, I think we're going to be okay. If you look at the first page, on page 2, after line 9, they just added the definitions for male and female. And then at the bottom of that page, page 2, after line 21, they added 3 little I and IV little I, Romanet IV, excuse me. My issue with that at first was the fact that they have to knowingly know, an educational institution shall not allow them if they know. And that was the key word for me, and I think we're okay with that, if you see that on both of those. Also on the little IV, it also, if you look on the back, it also says that the institution, they can determine that the competition would be unsafe or unfair. So I think it does allow a little bit of local control, which is what I think is still necessary on this. Page 4 on the back of the amendment, they asked to have declaratory and injunctive relief against an institution for any violation of this section. They felt like it gave a little bit more, I guess, what's the word? The lawyer word, more teeth in it, I guess. And so the court can award the prevailing party reasonable attorney's fees and costs. At the very bottom there, they just added the definition for individual sport. So with that, I would ask for an aye vote on this.
Senator Rothfuss.
Thank you, Mr. President. I do have a question. So the new definitions for male and female that are put in, I know that those came from other bills that have been going through, and we hadn't really talked about those definitions. I know that the definitions in the original bill, Senate File 44, was relatively straightforward, and I believe it was just a birth certificate basis, if I recall. Mr. President, I can see checking a birth certificate, but in all of the legislation that's gone through, and there have been plenty of bills with these definitions of female and male, I have never come to understand how anyone would check that. So just from a logistics standpoint, I don't know how anyone would come to me for proof that, well, you can read it, I'll read the definition, but it's male means a person who has had, will have, or would have had, but for a congenital anomaly or intentional or unintentional disruption, the reproductive system that at some point produces, transports, and utilizes, that you have to do all three of them, produce, transport, and utilize, sperm for fertilization. I'm just trying to think of the logistics of a good middle school, trying to sort through that. I know we've seen it in like 10 bills, but really, like, how is a middle school that has to enforce this bill, or a college, or really anyone that has to go through the enforcement of this, going to come to a determination on either male or female? I don't even know. I don't think any of us could prove today that either that we are female or male pursuant to these definitions. I have no such documentation, Mr. President. So it does seem like, and again, obviously I'm going to vote against this bill. I think everyone knows that. But if, just from the standpoint of logistics and making at least the lives of these poor institutions that are going to have to carry out the bill a little bit easier, I guess I'd maybe ask that you go against concurrence and go get back your definitions, which at least would be logistically enforceable. That's my thought, Mr. President. But yeah, I'm still going to vote no.
Okay, Senator Hutchings.
Landon was up first. Do you want to? Okay. Thank you, Mr. President. I don't know about the males in the body, but I think as early as 12 and 13, young ladies have to go through exams, and I think it could be proved real early what we are. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Landon.
Well, Mr. President, I actually liked this bill when it left the Senate. The Senate did good work. As an athletic director for many, many years at the college level, and I don't mean to come off as though I'm an expert, but I think I have a lot of time spent in this arena. There are a couple of other experts in here that you can certainly lean on, but regarding what was just brought up by the two previous speakers, no, there is not a good way. as an athletic director or an opposing coach to try to figure this out. There isn't. If a team shows up, are you really going to demand a physical examination? This is an awful lot of information that's been loaded onto this bill. It made a good bill not very good at all. So I'm going to vote against it. And it's logistics, it's definitions, I'm not sure what the bill even does now. I think it brings in opposing teams. I can't support it. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Landon. Senator Steinmetz.
Thank you, Mr. President. On and for concurrence, I think this trues us up with some other things we've been working on. I think that the language is legally defensible, and I also believe that this is common sense. And so we're trying to insert that back into our system. It's unfortunate we're having to define any of this, but these are the days we're in, and these are legally defensible definitions. Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay, Senator Barlow.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, so just looking at the amendment, so look at male means a person who has, had, or will have. I'm not sure what will have could possibly mean in the context of this bill. So if that doesn't give anybody else pause, it gives me pause. And maybe someone else can explain that to me. I do have a degree that includes surgery. This is not one I was ever informed of. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Anybody else wish to speak on the concurrence request? Yeah, Senator Brennan and then Senator Smith. Go ahead, Senator Brennan.
Thank you, Mr. President. We've looked at a couple different definitions of female and male throughout this legislative session, and I think that the body can decide, vote this up, vote this down on whether we want to go with these definitions or not. The scientist in me keeps wondering why we're not just defining these by chromosomes and then maybe carving out a couple of things for congenital anomalies. Just some thoughts, Mr. President.
Thank you. Senator Smith.
Mr. President, to the good man from Campbell County who's an ag, that is in reference to the production of sperm, sir. So my 12-year-old every day asks me, Dad, have I hit puberty yet? And I'm like, no, son, you have not. You're, you keep checking for hair under your armpits. But anyway, so that is a sign of puberty. Has, had, or will have. It would be someone who will produce sperm. Thanks.
Senator Case.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I just don't think this is our best work. And we sent something down there, we come back with this. None of it really, really works. And none of it, Mr. President, is really fair to people that we live with, their constituents. That I think we're spending a lot of time hurting people, perhaps, Mr. President, and not spending a lot of time helping people. For some reason, this bothers a lot of people, and they feel good to put it in the law. But I think actually our cure does more harm than what we're trying to fix. Mr. President, I just don't think the Senate's in a good space right now about this bill. I'd hope you think about it. And Mr. President, it's not a binary world. You're not either or. I guess we can define it by these ways, but that's not what people are. And you know some of those people, Mr. President. I know people like that. And I think this is hurtful. Thank you.
All right, anybody else before the sponsor? Senator Scott.
Mr. President, on and for the concurrence, these are the definitions here, the standard definitions that we've just voted to put into Title VIII. I can't see any difference between them. I think they will provide guidance long-term. And Mr. President, we're trying to legislate common sense. I think we've gotten it to where it'll work as a practical matter, and it is a binary world. I'm sorry, but you're either male or female. And that's just common sense, Mr. President. Let's not lose sight of that, and let's concur with this bill and get on with it.
Senator Barlow, for your second time.
Thank you, Mr. President. So I do appreciate that I am in agriculture, but I also believe I can read in the way this is written. And it says, will have the reproductive system, that at some point. So if you will have something, that means you must have had something different at one point before that. So this may be of something we have adopted somewhere else, but I'm looking at it in different contexts now, and this does not read right for me, Mr. President. Does not make sense the way this is written in there. So I remain concerned about this will have, because this would seem to indicate that you could be one and then another, and that this title would be applicable. I think that's what we're trying not to do. I think if we didn't want a loophole, think about in that context. Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay. Senator Schuler, back to you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good discussion. You know, obviously, I would have probably preferred to have left just the birth certificate in, but I've been told by lots of people that the birth certificates can be amended, and that's the issue with the other side bringing in the terminology of male and female. And thus far, it's been passed in a number of bills without any dissension. So I'm a little concerned as to why all of a sudden it's a big deal. But, you know, I understand if you've got some questions on that. But bottom line, if it makes it more defensible, that makes more sense to me. This bill is really just about whether or not we want to allow males to compete with females at the collegiate level. That's really what the bill is about, and we don't want that. And this bill takes care of that. Without the executive order, it's still a pretty good bill. With the executive order, it's strong enough. You know, maybe we don't even need this bill, but I think we do. Because I said before, you know, administrations change. 4 years from now, there could be a different administration that could go in and take away some of the executive orders that the present administration has passed. And then we want to have this in the green bill so that our female athletes in our junior colleges and our colleges have a fair, safe, level playing field. That's the bottom line, and I hope you'll vote for concurrence.
All right. The motion is that the Senate do concur on Senate File 44 and vote aye. The chief clerk will call the roll.
Concurrence roll call vote, Senate File 44. Anderson? No. Barlow? No. Boner? Aye. Brennan? Aye. Case? No. Cooper? No. Crago? No. Crum? Aye. Dockstader? Aye. Driscoll? No. French? Aye. Guru? No. Hicks? Aye. Hutchings? Aye. Ide? Aye. Jones? Aye. Kolb? Aye. Landon? No. Larson? Aye. McEwen? Aye. Nethercott? Aye. Olson? Aye. Pappas? Aye. Pearson? Aye. Rothfuss? No. Salazar? Aye. Schuler? Aye. Scott?
Aye. Smith? Aye. Aye. Steinmetz? Aye. President Beitman?
Aye.
Aye. Closing vote? Cooper, no to aye. Closing vote closed. Senate File 44, 23 aye, 8 no.
By your vote, you have concurred on Senate File 44. Senate File 169 engrossed, concurrence message number 498.
Message number 498, concurrence requested referencing Senate File 169, Strategic Investments in Projects Account Repeal.
Senator Hicks.
Mr. President, I move message 498, concurrence requested on original Senate File number 169, Strategic Investments in Project Account Repeal. Mr. President, and I would ask you to vote no on concurrence. Just members, there's a couple of things in here. They brought in a certain little project up in the northwest corner of the state, and then also some stuff with some of the transfer from the prison construction account that's in the SIPA that's being moved over into the general fund. We need to just go down and have a conversation with our colleagues at the end of the building and see what we can or can't do to come up with the difference between the positions and the bodies on this. So I would ask you to vote no on concurrence.
Thank you. Discussion on the concurrence? Ellen, do you have a roll call sheet on that bill? Or for the old, like the third reading roll call sheet? Like who voted no on this bill? So I don't have. Okay. Okay. Motion is that the Senate do concur on Senate File 169 and vote no. The Chief Clerk will call the roll.
Concurrence roll call vote, Senate File 169. Anderson? No. Barlow? No. Boner? No. Brennan? No. Case? No. Cooper? Aye. Crago? No. Crum? No. Dockstetter? No. Driscoll? No. French? No. Guru? No. Hicks? No. Hutchings? No. Ide? No. Jones? No. Cole? No. Landon? No. Larson? No. McEwen? No. Nethercott? No. Olson? No. Pappas? No. Pearson? No. Rothfuss? No. Salazar? No. Schuler? No. Scott? No. Smith? No. Steinmetz? No. President Beitman?
No.
No. Closing vote. Closing. Vote closed. Senate File 169, 1 aye, 30 no.
By your vote, you have failed to concur on Senate File 169, and I will get that conference committee appointed shortly. All right. Next one up is Senate File 153, referencing message number 495.
Message number 495, concurrence requested referencing Senate File 153, residential real property taxable value.
Senator Barlow.
Mr. President, thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I move message 495, concurrence request on Senate File 153, and ask for your no vote. Your no vote. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the bill that we spent some time visiting about, establishing a fourth class in our tax code, consistent with what the voters approved in the Constitutional Amendment A this past November. This establishes that fourth class, and the bill as it left here established that class, and then had a spot for the subclass, residential real property being the class, and then including an owner-occupied primary residence being the subclass. We left it at the same rate that it currently was. When it left this body, it was at 9.5%, which is the same rate as the all other category currently in statute. That's where we did. We established the class. What the body did, if you will, Mr. President, and you're looking at your concurrence request, what our colleagues did down the hall is, I'm just going to walk through the different amendments. What's in the bill as we're looking at it now is they changed the months from 6 to 8. 6 to 8 months. That's something, we've had that discussion on other bills, Mr. President. So that component probably isn't problematic. The next change that's still in the bill out of the Standing Committee amendment is the armed forces. If the owner is a member of the armed forces, they're deployed, they have latitude on the 8 months issue. And then, Mr. President, the next, and then the other parts of the Standing Committee amendment are deleted by the next amendment, and we'll walk through that one. Committee of the Whole Amendment number 2, Mr. President, says that for residential real property in 2025, it'll be 9.5%, and it also does the same thing in that other section. Remember, this bill has two sections. One is the definition section, one is the imposition section. But it gives the owner-occupied, it reduces that rate for 2026 and beyond down to 8.3. So we left here 9.5 for this class, which includes the subclass. This amendment splits that subclass out and moves it to 8.3, which is the maximum you can reduce it based on our constitutional construct without changing another rate. However, that was further amended in the second reading amendment number 3, or actually, I should back up. Second reading amendment number 1 was also adopted, and it inserted the word beneficial owner, and we can have a discussion about that. I don't think it's harmful to the bill. I think that probably makes sense. But then the next amendment, this is second reading amendment number 3 to 153, changes all the rates to 8.3. So for the entire class of residential real property, including owner-occupied, it's at 8.3. So, Mr. President, what that does, based on actions this body has already taken of having an exemption of 25% on the first million, et cetera, you know the details. This adds another 14% to the reduction that residential property owners could be able to receive. Now, to be clear, there are some differences in definitions between this bill and the other bill. Such as this bill, it would be not applicable to trailer houses. The other bill, it is. So there are some logistical things that still need to be, that the agency and the counties will have to deal with. But the net effect is we're approaching 39% reduction on residential real property. That is directly coming out of school foundation. We had that discussion yesterday. How much more relief can we give if we're going to be picking up the tab? And then more importantly, I think for our local governments is how much more reduction can they absorb without some assistance? There is no backfill in this bill, so that is a solid Senate position. I appreciate that. But understanding we're adding to the 25% based with some nuance to the definitions, we're adding another 14.5%. I'm sure some of you have received some emails from those local elected officials saying, slow this train down a little bit, let's have an understanding of what that means. And I'll be glad to stand for questions. I do have the numbers that I can start rolling out some numbers to knowing where those impacts are, but just recall, you're basically going to add another 50% plus to what we did with that 25%. Thank you, Mr. President. And I would ask you, if there's no question, I ask you to vote no on concurrence. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Barlow. Discussion on the concurrence request. Senator Rothfuss.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I urge you to vote no also, but I do have a couple questions. It looks like there is no cap on this. That's my understanding, is that this would be, since this is changing the assessment rate on the valuation, there's no $1 million or $500,000 cap. It would be my expectation then that if it's a $40 million home, it would still be a 15% across, or 14%, whatever that number was, effective tax cut on it. So is that accurate? Second is, looking at the goldenrod, I honestly can't find this bill, and maybe I'm missing it somewhere. So if we know the impact and if we know where it is on the goldenrod, could I get that pointed out so that I see what the actual fiscal impact of this bill as it currently stands is? And yeah, those are the key questions. I'll stop there, Mr. President.
Anybody else for the sponsor? Senator McEwen.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a quick comment. Since it's the actual valuation rate, it would be unconstitutional to cap it at any level. It goes across the entire class of properties. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator McEwen. Anybody else before the sponsor? Senator Hicks.
Mr. Chairman, as far as regarding the goldenrod, because these aren't an expenditures of state funds, they're a reduction of local governments. We don't profile the impact associated with those tax reductions or those local taxes that are collected. And so when we do this, they're never profiled, because this only deals with the expenditures and revenues that the state of Wyoming gets. So the reason that we saw some of the other tax bills is because we had backfills in there. So that was going to come out of some level of state's coffers. So you'll remember a number of these bills where we did some diversions associated with some of the severance taxes. Those don't show up when we divert those funds. But the reason you can't find it is because it's not at this point in time. Historically, that's the way we've treated those. Those property taxes are local government taxes, so we don't profile the impact of those on our accounts. So anyway, I hope that explains why you don't see that on the goldenrod.
Thank you. Anybody else? Senator Rothfuss, for your second time.
Thank you, Mr. President. And yeah, we won't see it on the general fund side, obviously, but I was actually looking at an old goldenrod was the big problem. And on school foundation program, we do see the implications to the state specifically, which doesn't show us the full amount. It just shows us the direct cost from the school foundation program account, which is due to the additional amount that the state will have to pay to make up for the cost of the local communities. So it's definitely not the full amount to the local communities, but I did find it on there, and if I've got the most recent one, I've got the March 3rd. For anyone that's looking for it now, it's on page 4, line 20, and yeah, that is only a portion of it. So the $15 million cost is just what comes out of the school foundation program, but we don't know, at least to my knowledge, we don't know what the full amount is of the tax break from the perspective of the local communities. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Senator Ide.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm actually on and for this concurrence. I think this gets us back to the property tax bill that left this chamber, House Senate File 69, where it left here at 50% and we ended up at 25. So I like us getting back to where we started from with Senate File 69. It kind of moves us closer to that number. So on and for this concurrence. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Senator Jones.
Mr. President, on and against the concurrence, I've said it before, I'm going to say it again. Not every community in this state had their property taxes go up that high. We are trying to give a responsible tax relief to our citizens back home, but we can't just keep taking away from the local communities.
It's not up to us to decide how much those communities can afford a break to get or how much we're going to take from them. It's not up to us. We've given tax relief. I think we have something responsible coming our way with Senate File 69, and this is just taking more and more out of our local coffers. Some of these communities did not have an increase. Some of these communities have been cutting their budget every single year since 2019. I realize some of them have more to give, but this should be a measured approach, not the approach we're taking. The blanket approach is not the way to go. On and against this concurrence.
Thank you, Senator Jones. Senator Landon.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have one elected official back home who weighed in and likes this measure, and every one of the other ones don't. The question I have, and I'm sorry if I missed it, the presenter of this concurrence might have touched on it, but what is magical about 8.3 versus the the other language that could be in there, and why wouldn't we want to go back and at least land this a little further out on the tarmac? It just seems like this is an important enough bill that we would want to have some further discussions. I'm just struggling on that front. I'd like to know a little bit more about why this number was chosen. Was it to accomplish a certain amount of money? I'm hearing that we're going to have to come up with about 20 million to make this happen. I don't know what the money is that goes with that, so I could use a little help. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Landon. Senator Case.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, if we think about the impact on the school foundation program, if we would just assume that's the 15 million, and I don't know about your town and county, Mr. President, but in my county, the school mills are 43 mills, 43 and some change. And the total mill levy is 74 mills. So you can expect that the impact to local governments, special districts, everything, at least for Fremont County, it would be proportional. If 15 million is just for the schools, then you take the ratio to the 74 and it's going to be another good chunk of change, Mr. President. And it's going to affect local governments all across the state. But Mr. President, the real problem is it's not an even amount of impact. You have counties that are extremely sensitive to the house mill levies, the property taxes on homes. And some of them are in eastern Wyoming. There's one in particular that's just astounding how that impact is. Now, if you have minerals in your county, for most years when minerals are good, although I'm kind of worried about Senator Cooper's discussion this morning about the price of oil, but when mineral revenues are good, this won't have a lot of impact on those counties. But it is very disparate on its impacts, and that's a problem. There's also the problem that this boldface is all home property. Everything. The wealthiest to the poorest. The wealthiest county in the state will get the biggest impact out of this. I don't know. I've lived in, my family's had my home for more than 80 years, since just before World War II. And it's, it's a big old house. And it probably has an assessed value of maybe a couple $100,000. So I won't get that much out of this, really. But if I lived in a county to the northwest, and my little house, or my big house on the mountain, is worth millions and millions and millions, and I came here for the low property taxes in the way of life, man, I am going to be ka-ching, ka-ching, ka-ching. let's not concur on this one and get it back to where it was, because we need a more thoughtful strategy about what we're going to do with our fourth class of property, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Case. Senator McEwen for your second time.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just to answer a question, the magic behind 8.3, constitutionally, that's as low as it could go. So that's why it was probably selected. It couldn't go any lower. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Senator Kolb.
Thank you, Mr. President. On and against concurrence. I think this bill left here in a reasonable shape. It was a reasonable approach to handle this question of setting this rate. I think we did the right thing. It goes, once again, it goes too far. It goes too far. Our communities aren't the same. I think we should send it back and see if we can get a better deal, get it back where it was in the Senate's position. On and against concurrence, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Hicks.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, we got a really good friend just down the hallway, so I went and just verified what I thought I know regarding. So when you see that profile on the impact of the school foundation program account, remember, the first 12 mills assessed for school districts stay right with those school districts. So the only thing we profile is those mills that come back to the state. So the fiscal impact is greater than just, we don't see that. We see what's the state's portion of those mills that come to the states. That's what we profile there. It has a much greater impact because we don't profile the reduction of those local 12 mills within that goes to the local schools. So it has a little bigger fiscal impact than just the states. So you can take that and just about double that. Now, it's a little bit different because we assess a little more than those local school districts for the state. But again, what you're not seeing is the entire fiscal impact associated with that and so that's the same thing with your local governments. You don't see the impact on the local school districts, which ultimately reduces their funding, which puts more of them into the hardship category that we're going to pay for that loss in those local. This just profiles what we're responsible for, but we are responsible for the overall system. So we're going to get a double whammy associated with this. So just for a little edification, Mr. President.
Thank you. Anybody else for the bill sponsor or? Okay, back to you, Senator Barlow.
Thank you, Mr. President. So good discussion. I think there was a question about no cap. No, there is no cap because this is just actually setting a rate. The rate is the rate, it's the cap, it's however. So there is no cap on assessed value. And unfortunately, I don't think I thought I had the correct Excel sheet in here, but I do have an update, the numbers as of this morning for Senate File 69. The net revenue effect of Senate File 69 is almost 129 million across the state. To the good point that was just made about education, the net education, both local and state, 6/12/25 is almost 80 million. That all doesn't show up on the goldenrod because some of it's absorbed at the local level. The county mills on 69, again, I'm trying to illustrate what we could be compounding here with, or adding to with this. The county mills, the county 12 mills, the net effect to the communities is $22 million. And you are correct, the largest beneficiary of that is that county in the far west of the state. And then the all others, and that includes your cities and towns and all those special districts, 25 million. So that's 69. So if you add another 50% to all that, including 50% to the state's education decrease, that's what this bill in its current form does. So I'd ask for, again, for your no vote on concurrence, no vote on concurrence, and that we continue to educate ourselves on the consequences and work with our colleagues down the hall to come up with something, a path forward. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Barlow. The motion is that the Senate do concur on Senate File 153 and vote no. The Chief Clerk will call the roll.
Concurrence roll call vote, Senate File 153. Anderson? No. No. Barlow? No. No. Boner? No. No. Brennan? No. No. Case? No. Cooper? No. No. Crago? No. No. Crum? No. Dockstetter? No. Driscoll? No. French? Aye. Guru? No. No. Hicks? No. Hutchings? No. Ide? Aye. Jones? No. Cole? No. Landon? No. Larson? No. McEwen? Aye. Nethercott? No. Olson? No. Pappas? No. Pearson? Aye. Rothfuss? No. Salazar? No. Schuler? No. Scott? Aye. Smith? Aye. Steinmetz? No. President Beitman?
Aye.
Aye. Closing vote? Closing. Vote closed. Concurrence vote on Senate File 153, 7 aye, 24 no.
By your vote, you have failed to concur on Senate File 153. Joint Conference Committee Number 1 will consist of Senator Barlow, Chairman, Senators McEwen and Case. Joint Conference Committee appointment to Senate File 169. Joint Conference Committee Number 1 will be Senator Hicks, Chairman, Senators Rothfuss, Senator Smith. Do we have any more concurrences? No. Okay. Oh, man, where's Senator Case?
You'll just have to miss him.
Signing of enrolled acts. All right, okay, Marla's happy. All right. House Enrolled Act number 70.
House Enrolled Act number 70 being Original House Bill 43, an act relating to child protection.
I'm about to sign House Enrolled Act number 70, being Original House Bill 43. I have so signed. House Enrolled Act number 71.
House Enrolled Act number 71 being Original House Bill 165, an act relating to elections.
I'm about to sign House Enrolled Act number 70, 71, being Original House Bill 165. I have so signed. House Enrolled Act number 72.
House Enrolled Act number 72 being Original House Bill 280, an act relating to criminal procedure.
I'm about to sign House Enrolled Act number 72, being Original House Bill 280. So signed. Okay. Any other reports? Seeing none. Looks like Senator Case wants to take the floor here. Senator Case.
Privilege of the floor, Mr. President.
Floor is yours, sir.
Let me just say, you did a really good job on those acts, and I heard a little bit of it from upstairs. but
Okay.
Privilege of the floor to introduce a couple of friends of mine. Mr.
Please,
President.
yes, sir.
Members of the Senate, I'd like you to join me in welcoming two really good friends of mine, and one that Janae Vodokvich. I grew up 2 blocks from her. I had a big crush on her big sister, and she grew up in Lander, of course. And she's been helping this remarkable young man, Tate Schruck, who has built a company called Edge Flight. And they have a manufacturing place in Cheyenne. And they are building a component that is going to be sent up on a rocket from India in a couple months. It benefits education. These are components that are educational components that classrooms can put together and decide what experiments they have on it. And the particular flight that's going to occur on the Indian rocket benefits underprivileged girls in India. It's just the greatest project in the world. It's happening right here in Cheyenne, Wyoming by a fifth-generation farmer from northern Colorado, northeastern Colorado, who's made his way to Wyoming. So please join me in giving a hearty welcome to Janae Vodakovich and Tate Shrug. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator Case. Welcome to the Senate. Thank you. All right. Well, Madam Majority Floor Leader, I think that clears the desk.
Mr. President, I move that we stand recessed until 2:45 p.m., Senators, as we will caucus in room W110 at 2 p.m. And so we'll stand recessed until 2:45 p.m. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Any announcements? Any announcements? Senator Barlow.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just note that today's the last Wednesday we're hopeful of this session. It's also Wyoming. Well, we haven't declared that Wyoming. Never mind. It's just the last Wednesday. Thank you, Mr. President.
Last Wednesday. All right. Hopefully. What's going on, Chairman French?
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a reminder, here at noon in Capitol Extension Room 6 and online, the Joint Ag Committees will discuss interim topics. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Have fun. Chairman Schuler.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just another reminder to our Joint Education Committee that we'll be meeting at noon in room 5, right next door to room 6. And we'll be taking a look at those interim topics right at noon. Thank you.
All right. Anybody else? Any further announcements? Senator Cooper.
No privilege of the floor real quick.
Please. Hopefully it's good news.
I'm kind of puzzled up by part of what Senator Case said over here. He mentioned he grew up, and I'm not sure that's...
Yeah. The journal will reflect that, yes. Well stated. Okay, you've all heard the majority floor leader's motion. All those in favor say aye. As opposed, no. Motion carries. Senate will stand recessed till 2:45 p.m. Caucus at 2.